Every gardener who's ever watched the leaves of their thriving plants suddenly curl, brown or crisp at the edges knows the sting of nutrient burn. It's honestly one of the most common mistakes, even among experienced growers, caused not by neglect but by overcare. The drive to give plants more can sometimes do more harm than good. But what if there was a feeding method that made nutrient burn impossible, no matter how rich your compost or fertilizer mix was? That's where trench feeding comes in. An old, soil-smart method that regulates nutrient flow naturally and keeps your plants in perfect balance from root to leaf. Nutrient burn isn't from bad soil, it's from direct exposure to concentrated feed. Nutrient burn isn't from bad soil, it's from direct exposure to concentrated feed. Nutrient burn isn't from bad soil, it's from direct exposure to concentrated feed. Before understanding why trench feeding works so well, we need to understand what causes nutrient burn in the first place. When fertilizers, especially nitrogen-heavy or compost-rich ones, come into direct contact with roots, they overwhelm the plant's osmotic balance. Instead of absorbing water and nutrients gradually, the roots are burned by excessive salts and rapid mineral uptake. The result: dehydrated cells, yellow tips, and brittle leaves. Even organic compost can cause this when used incorrectly. Fresh manure, incomplete compost, or concentrated liquid fertilizers often contain high levels of ammonia or nitrates. When these sit directly on the root zone, they push plants into overdrive. What trench feeding does differently is control that contact, spacing the nutrients where soil microbes can mediate the release first, rather than dumping everything directly onto the root surface. In nature, nutrients aren't delivered all at once. Organic matter breaks down gradually in the upper and middle soil layers, with rainwater carrying dissolved nutrients toward the roots in slow, balanced doses. Trench feeding is essentially the gardener's way of engineering this process intentionally. Instead of placing compost, manure or fertilizer right around plant bases, you dig shallow trenches a short distance away from the stems, usually 6 to 10 inches depending on plant size. The nutrients are buried in these trenches and covered with soil, creating a controlled release system. As the organic material decomposes or as fertilizers dissolve, nutrients migrate laterally through the soil, reaching the root zone in a moderated flow. This separation is the key. It means the plant gets what it needs when it needs it, filtered naturally by the soil's microbial network and moisture gradient. The result? No burns, no stunted roots, and no wasted fertilizer. When you bury your nutrients in a trench rather than top-dress them, you're doing more than just preventing direct contact. You're actually activating the soil's microbial filtration system. Microbes, fungi and bacteria, colonize the buried material, breaking it down and transforming volatile compounds into plant-safe nutrients. This microbial buffering means nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium become available only after they've been processed into stable forms. For example, ammonia from raw manure is converted into nitrates only after passing through nitrifying bacteria. A transformation that frankly neutralizes the harsh effects of the original compound. The process is slow, steady, and completely safe for roots. By the time nutrients migrate horizontally toward the roots, they're perfectly balanced and bioavailable, delivered with the precision nature intended. The beauty of trench feeding is that it's adaptable to nearly any garden setup. The basic method starts with digging trenches about 6 inches deep and 8 inches away from the plant base for smaller crops like kale, tomatoes or peppers. For larger crops such as corn or squash, the trench can be about a foot away. Once your trench is ready, fill it with your nutrient source. This can be finished compost, aged manure, or a controlled mix of organic fertilizer and soil. For compost, a ratio of 1 part compost to 2 parts soil works well. For manure, go lighter, about 1 part manure to 3 parts soil to prevent high ammonia concentration. Cover the trench with soil immediately after filling to prevent odour and nutrient loss. Over time, rain or irrigation water will leach nutrients from this buried line toward the plant's feeder roots. You'll notice steadier growth, deeper green foliage, and far fewer signs of stress, even during high feeding periods. In raised beds, a modified version works perfectly. Simply dig narrow channels between rows, fill them with composted matter, and cover. As roots spread, they'll grow toward the enriched zone, pulling in nutrients as needed, rather than being bombarded from above. There's another hidden advantage to trench feeding: soil stability. You see, buried organic matter retains moisture far better than surface-applied compost. This underground sponge effect ensures that nutrients dissolve gradually rather than flushing away with heavy rain. The soil above remains cooler in summer and warmer in early spring, creating a more consistent environment for both roots and microbial activity. For example, gardeners who trench feed during hot months often notice that their soil doesn't crack or dry out as quickly. The decomposition beneath the surface traps humidity, feeding roots even when surface moisture is low. In colder months, the slow breakdown of organics generates gentle heat, helping extend the growing season slightly in temperate regions. In essence, you're building a living, temperature-regulating fertilizer reservoir right beneath your plants. Now, seedlings, young transplants, and sensitive crops like herbs or lettuce are particularly prone to nutrient burn. Even mild fertilizers can scorch their fine roots. Trench feeding provides a workaround by keeping the hot zone at a safe distance until the plant is strong enough to reach it. For example, when transplanting tomatoes, you can dig a shallow trench alongside each planting row, fill it with aged compost, and backfill before placing your seedlings. As the plants mature, their roots will naturally grow toward that buried nutrient line. By the time they reach it, decomposition will have cooled the material, ensuring a slow, safe uptake. This method is also invaluable in heavy feeders like maize or cabbage, which demand constant nutrition but can't tolerate concentrated feeding at their base. Trench feeding gives them the consistent, gradual supply they need without risking damage. Over-fertilization is honestly one of the most expensive and wasteful gardening errors you can make. Whether it's from synthetic fertilizer runoff or compost piles that release nutrients too fast, valuable minerals are often lost long before plants can use them. Trench feeding traps those nutrients underground, forcing them to pass through microbial filters before reaching the roots. This means, really, plants can't be shocked, and nutrients can't be wasted. Once established, a trench feeding system essentially runs itself. As you add new organic matter to the same channels season after season, soil fertility builds layer by layer. Earthworms move in, tunnels form, and your soil transforms into a living ecosystem that recycles every scrap of waste efficiently. In the long run, trench-fed beds outperform top-fed ones in both yield and resilience. Nutrient availability remains constant, water retention improves, and the risk of root damage drops to zero. Nutrient burn isn't a sign of bad gardening. It's really just a symptom of poor timing and delivery. Trench feeding eliminates both problems by allowing soil biology to manage the release process for you. It's clean, efficient, and completely scalable, whether you're working a small backyard bed or a full-acre homestead. So, next time you reach for that compost bucket or fertilizer bag, don't spread it on the surface. Dig a small trench, let the soil do the buffering, and give your plants what they truly need: steady, safe nutrition from below. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe to Hydro Haven, share it with your gardening community, and keep exploring the methods that make soil smarter, not harder, to manage. Because the healthiest gardens aren't the ones we feed the most, they're the ones we feed best.